Hi, my name is Joe, and I want to tell you a true story. Several years ago, a determined principal from Oakland, California named Kristen Cliberero was struggling to find effective ways to support her teachers with classroom management strategies. So she teamed up with author Lee Cantor to figure out a solution. The two set across the country to observe hundreds of highly effective classroom teachers to unlock the mystery of getting 100% of their scholars engaged and learning in culturally relevant ways. The two identified that these remarkable teachers built life-altering relationships with their students inside and outside of the classroom. From this foundational relationship, these educators implemented the following 4 techniques on a consistent basis. First, these teachers consistently provided precise directions so scholars knew what was expected. Second, they identified a technique now called positive narration, where teachers noticed scholars following the directions in a positive tone. Third, they held scholars accountable through consistent and socially just incentives and consequences. Finally, even though the above practices built relationships by being consistent, fair, and positive, these committed educators never stopped developing and deepening those relationships with their scholars throughout the year. Cliberero and Cantor were able to take these principles and create the no-nonsense nurturer model for classroom culture, which allows teachers all around the country to adopt the same practices of those highly effective educators. Let's take a closer look at the 4 main principles of the no-nonsense nurturer model. While relationships are the foundation by which all no-nonsense nurturers build their classroom culture, every educator needs to set their scholars up for success while relationships are being built. No-nonsense nurturers begin every activity, lesson, and transition with precise directions so each scholar knows what to do and how to do it. By communicating clear, positive, and achievable expectations for all scholars, they nurture and demonstrate care while creating a safe and predictable environment. Additionally, when they plan in advance for their precise directions, it increases academic time on task, which translates to more time for learning. No-nonsense nurturers craft precise directions following a basic formula outlining how they move, what their voice level is, and how they should participate in the expectation.
Scholars, when I say go, turn to your partner and in a library voice level share your thoughts to this question posed on the front board. Go.
After no-nonsense nurturers give precise directions to their scholars, they then use positive narration. Positive narration is noticing out loud in a neutral yet positive tone those scholars who are following directions. By acknowledging scholars who are following directions, no-nonsense nurturers are able to restate directions in a productive way. Positive narration creates a constructive classroom culture and climate by building momentum, enhancing the teacher's with-itness, and encouraging student self-regulation. Additionally, positive narration respects and preserves individual autonomy while building self-control for scholars who might need directions to be repeated more than one time. The benefits of positive narration are immeasurable. Positive narration occurs immediately after giving a precise direction and incorporates the specifics of that MVP direction.
Santos is quickly turning to his partner. Vivian is using her library voice. Arturo is discussing the questions on the front board with his partner.
After narrating, the no-nonsense nurturers scan the class and note if all scholars are on task and following directions. Because they actively work to ensure 100% of their scholars are engaged and learning, it is important to notice when the third part of the model is necessary, providing consistent and socially just incentives and consequences. If all scholars are engaged in following directions, no-nonsense nurturers may acknowledge that 100% participation with positive incentives.
100% of scholars are engaged in partner work for 5 minutes. This level of collaboration just earned us a class point toward our incentive. Great job.
For scholars who choose not to follow precise direction, no-nonsense nurturers issue a fair consequence which holds all scholars accountable for their learning. Consequences communicate multiple messages. When delivered in a neutral tone, consequences communicate that the teacher cares too much about the scholar to allow him or her to be disengaged from the learning. Fair and just consequences demonstrate that everyone counts in this classroom. Consequences communicate high expectations. Consequences follow a hierarchy that is posted, taught, and mastered by all scholars in the classroom.
Sarah, the expectation is to remain seated. That's your warning. I care too much about you for you not to engage in the group work. Let's get started.
Scholars and teachers have consistently reported that the first 3 steps of this model, precise directions, positive narration, consequences, and incentives, set their classroom up for a consistent approach to learning. This approach builds a positive classroom culture and communicates high expectations coupled with high levels of caring and support. The foundation and fourth step of the no-nonsense nurturer model is building life-altering relationships. Many of the relationships no-nonsense nurturers build extend beyond the classroom. When teachers build strong relationships with scholars, not only do they support scholars in their learning, but they also grow their own cultural competence and abilities to provide culturally relevant instruction for their scholars. No-nonsense nurturers get to know each of their scholars not just as academics, but as people. No-nonsense nurturers work to know each of their scholars' aspirations, fears, triggers, assets, and gifts. The first three steps of the model, precise directions, positive narration, and incentives and consequences, establish a safe classroom environment with high expectations. With these structures in place, no-nonsense nurturers can build trust and deeper relationships with individuals. This is where the no-nonsense nurturer model is truly transformative. The no-nonsense nurturer story continues as classrooms all across the country adopt this effective model that first started as one educator's passion to equip teachers and educate every child. Thanks for watching.